Hey everybody, and this is David with No Chaser, and for today's video, it's going to be a little bit different. This is going to be kind of a more personal diary entry. Not like a diary entry, that's not right, but like kind of a, I don't know, just a little bit letting you in closer, like a more intimate view of my kind of journey in recovery, and that is today about ketamine-assisted treatment. And so, for background on me, I've long struggled with alcoholism addiction, hence this channel. And if you want the evidence, more than like 60 videos. But I've also struggled with depression, and I've struggled with depression. Actually, that's the one thing I've struggled with longer than even addiction. It started when I was in the middle school, and basically what I had, when I was younger, I would describe what I had was an abnormal sadness. That's when I noticed that like my sadness wasn't like the other kids' types of sadness, and I would have other things that were different too, like types of low energy. Like as a sixth grade boy, like struggling with low energy was like incredibly strange. I felt different and I felt separate. That's usually with anything like a mental health or a personality disorder. There's something within you that makes you feel different from other people. Not just that you feel bad, but different. And I felt that with the types of thoughts, the negative thoughts and things I was having. So then it got worse throughout high school. And then in high school, that's when I started my journey of self-medicating with drugs and alcohol. Now, I would struggle with drugs and alcohol, and like one thing I want to say is that I would never consider any attempts at relieving my depression, like whether it was through therapy or medication while I was still drinking and using, as any sort of real attempt. If you are struggling with any sort of mental health problem and you're still drinking or using as you're trying to remedy it, I would not count those as honest attempts. Just being truthful, because it's not going to work if you're still using or drinking. But during longer stints of sobriety, I would try to get help because the depressive waves would come back. I've tried a lot of medication. I've got like a gene therapy, not gene therapy, but a gene study test done, and it shows that I metabolize antidepressants at a lower rate, which would show why they were like, for the most part, highly ineffective. And that, it was a very discouraging time just going through all the different types of like antidepressants and psychoactive medications. I have done ECTs, which is that's the electroconvulsive therapy. It's not electroshock therapy. It's one where they it's not like back in the crazy old school days. It's one where they try to like induce seizures, and it's kind of like a reset. It's like, like you can hard reset your phone in a way. It's kind of like that for the brain, for the mind. And as more background, I have depression pretty strong on both the grandparent side of my mom and dad's family. My grandpa, I try not to get too into personal information, but he had undergone ECTs for a long time, and he had struggled with depression for a long time in his life. Unfortunately, it never really seemed to take. Then, I did things like TMS, which is using like a transdermal like magnet type therapy. That's again trying to reset the brain. Just all sorts of other types of therapy. So I finally got to, there's been booming research and evidence that's showing that like ketamine-assisted therapy could help. And my first initial reaction, just to be honest, was like, wait, what? You're just going to get like high off of horse tranquilizer or something? I think that's a lot of people's first reaction. And that's, there's been this boom in using sort of psychedelics as a form of like therapy for things like PTSD, for forms of treatment regarding like, mood disorders and things like that, bipolar. And there's even been things where they use like Molly or MDMA, like the extraction during group therapy for like veterans that are going through PTSD, and it showed promising results. There's always this kind of like, hurdle to get over where people are like, oh man, it just seems like people want to get high and that will fix their problems. And while there may be very, very, very rare cases where that's like part of it, it's really not. These are people honestly, genuinely trying to do anything they can to get better. And these show that like these sort of disassociative and these experiences can cause this breakthrough in what is normally cycles and patterns of thought that are just destructive to the person. And for me, having like, as I always say, I'm bilingual or have dual citizenship regarding drugs and alcohol. I had abused both. One thing that I was at least felt better about is that I never abused the hallucinogens. I never even like tried ketamine or anything like that before. The one time I had ever used it before this most recent form of treatment was it was just in a place where they used it as like a detox, and it was supposed to help with alcohol cravings, and it was kind of a newer thing that was experimental. The problem was is that going through alcohol withdrawals, I was just I didn't remember a lot of it. I was so sick and everything, I couldn't really find its benefits, but I did remember that I didn't completely freak out being on the ketamine. So I thought, you just got to keep trying, kind of keep trying to find a way. And this is, by the way, this is not to say that any sort of treatment or therapy like this is going to replace any sort of program of recovery. You still need to go to meetings. If you use a sponsor, you still need to do that. You still need to practice on coping mechanisms. Like, one of the biggest things, at least for me, is to still work on the basic stuff too. Still get good, nutrition, still sleep well, still do all the things that basically nobody wants to do. I mean, I know people's hearts sink when they go like, man, you have to do those basic things because it's so difficult, but they really do work. And some of my best times of sobriety, those were the things that worked. So I did my first foundational. It's supposed to be over like a 6-week course, and I did my first treatment today, and they went through the whole consultation, and they sent me stuff through, just some things of what to expect. It's kind of like hard because, again, because of the dissociative sort of effects, you don't really know what to expect or how people will react to kind of going under. Some people will just fall asleep during it, though. At least from what I gained from speaking with my doctor, was the big thing is that it's supposed to help sort of provide some sort of mental and emotional breakthroughs that can help you gravitate towards things of getting through negative cognitions and impulsive thoughts. So when you're in those moments that I've talked about so much on this video series, and all those times where it's too late, where you're starting to have the craving, and then you're going to buy the bottle of alcohol, or you're going to just sulk in your depression, and you need to stop, you need to do something, but you feel like you can't. It's supposed to be through this sort of treatment that you can interject during those times and actually have your autonomy to be able to stop that train from coming on course. Because this is supposed to be, for me at least, kind of a thing that's supposed to be an aid to helping me, keep from relapsing and keep from especially deal with my depression when I am sober. And that usually is what's one thing that leads back to it. Now, that's not the only thing. I'm not saying depression is the reason I relapse. I relapse because I'm addicted to alcohol, but this is supposed to be something that's been helping. So the thing is that the setup that at least I went through, now, anytime you make a video like these, you always have to say programs vary, things vary completely, especially with insurance. Unfortunately, I live in kind of a more Midwest conservative state, so this is one thing where I have to get on a payment plan for something out of pocket. Just all that boring stuff out of the way. But hopefully, you can be in a state where it's covered. But for instance, when I got there, they talked about, they walk through a meditation, they take your heart rate, they make sure you're kind of on a physical health side, that you'll be okay. You're being monitored. It's not the greatest thing where you have a camera looking at you, but the thing is that when they started the treatment, it was interesting. It was down to the exact moment where, and this is the crazy part I'll get to, where they had it set up to where it was, you'd put on these headphones, and they took at least for the first one, they take your phone away. They don't want you playing around on your phone and distracting you. They want you really in this thought. They would have a guided meditation, and they had this one stick of essential oils where the smell, you hold it, it was away from you, but when the medication started kicking in, you could actually start to smell whatever scent you chose much more, or at least you should. And then for how long with the anesthesiology, when it was supposed to kick into your mind, the music would start to play, which is, by the way, just kind of very, very similar to what they do in the movie Inception, where they have this stuff where they have the thing where they go in the dream world and the kick. A lot of it was like that. And there was a moment where I actually laughed when I was coming back from the overall the infusion, as they call it, where they actually had some of the Hans Zimmer, who's the composer. They had some of the waking up music, in the end of the Inception, when they wake up from the final dream thing and they're all looking at each other. They had one of those. I was just oh my god, this is so on the nose. But this wasn't what I want to say is me tripping out and just being whoa, dude. I think of maybe God is energy and the world is made up of bugs or something like that. It wasn't things like that. It made me just really I was not so taken far back that I really started contemplating on my life, and I contemplated on things that I needed to do. And as for the most part, I felt pretty good. This is just the first run. This is supposed to be a 6-week course where I do it 2 times a week, and I can keep you updated and post on how that works. But they have one thing where you have like a ride where at least after 4 hours after you do it, they're not letting you drive home, so you're not just like, I'm still in the spaceship, dude. Or again, I need to stop saying things like this where it seems like I'm disparaging it, because it is. People may think of it negatively in that way, but it is something that I think could be really beneficial. And so I am. This is one big thing is, regardless if it's a treatment like this or use options, use the research, and use things that are evidence based that may be able to help you, and just keep trying if you're struggling with your addiction or mental illness. And other than that, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I have my membership tiers. I have like these tiers that are set up where basically I don't know how to monetize this thing. The only reason I even want any sort of money is just so it can give me a little bit of freedom to keep doing it. If no money is ever made from this, that's totally fine. This is basically, like I said, an open diary. It helps me. The feedback that you people have given to me, the encouragement you give others is more than welcome enough. But if you want to look at the membership tiers, you can. It's in like that little join button. If not, totally fine. I'm the worst salesman or promoter ever. Just fuck it. Don't even think about it. And now I cussed. I went this whole thing without cussing. All right. Anyways, other than that, guys, just be well.